helps develop the technology that we all need to meet both our ethical standards and the standards that really a lot of our clients are demanding, especially the corporate clients at this point, to keep our data secure. And he both develops that technology, then goes out in the community to help lawyers understand that and educate lawyers, and then brings that back and implements what he hears from the lawyers to further develop the programs. And so with that, I hope Michael, that we can tell the group a little more about what you do. It's fascinating work.
Thank you. Now I'm going to stand here. Is that okay? For the camera, I guess, here. So first off, thanks for having us. So I'm from Veritext. A lot of what you said is exactly what I do. I come out and meet with attorneys, either doing CLEs or just meetings and hear feedback and then go back and we develop tools. This CLE actually came out of the need for HIPAA compliance and concerns about digital security, and I'll get into that a little bit more when we start. But I like it to be interactive. So hopefully you guys ask lots of questions. The more questions, more interactive, I think the more fun it will be, and it won't just be me lecturing on for a long time. I'm going to turn on my little remote here. So let's jump in. Back in 1945, when computers were the size of this entire room, Naval Officer Grace Hopper was working on one of the first computers. And she was running a program and it kept giving her errors. And she looked at the code and everything looked correct. So she thought maybe there's something wrong with the machine. So she got up and looked in one of the relays, and stuck there was a bug, the first computer bug. It's a true story. This is actually her note. She taped the bug to her notes. And that's where we get the term computer bug. And that's how we're going to kind of go through this tonight. We're going to look at terminology and buzzwords that we all hear and throw around and probably don't know really what they mean, and more importantly, how they affect us in the legal field. So I'm going to try to put that all in perspective. Now, it seemed kind of anti-technology to give you a paper handout at a technology seminar, so we actually leveraged the iBooks platform as well as PDF for your desktop and laptop, and all of the content we have in there, so you don't have to worry about scribbling down notes or remembering product names that we talk about or websites. We're going to send an email afterwards with links to download these, and of course, if you have any questions, it'll also have our contact information. So this does count for ethics credit, so let's put some ethical foundation in there, and luckily there is an app for that. It's called Rulebook. You can download it, and in there you can actually buy the ABA model rules, so you can make sure you're ethical even on the go. So I'm going to kind of just read these so we kind of set the stage. The first is to maintain the requisite knowledge and skill. A lawyer should keep abreast of the changes in the law and its practice, including the benefits and risk associated with relevant technology. I think that's a very important part. Engage in continuing study and education to comply with all continuing legal education requirements to which the lawyer is subject, why we're all here today. Another component is a lawyer shall make reasonable efforts to prevent the inadvertent or unauthorized disclosure of or unauthorized access to information relating to the representation of a client, what I think is the core of this. And also, interestingly enough, and I'd love to get feedback throughout, a client may require the lawyer to implement special security measures not required by this rule. And I'll try to give you a few examples of clients that we've worked with that had special security practices, and I'm sure you have had the same, or I can assure you they're coming. And then last but not least, when transmitting a communication that includes information relating to the representation, for instance, an email of a client, the lawyer must take reasonable precautions to prevent the information from coming into the hands of unintended recipients. Everybody got it? What I think these all really say is that we need to keep confidential information confidential. And almost every day we hear of another security breach or data breach where information is lost. I mean, I'm sure every Fortune 500 company's been in the news, or they probably will be. So it's really become something we need in the legal field to address. Now, I don't know if you said it in the intro or I said it in my intro, we're a court reporting company. We do corporate. So you might wonder, well, why are you here talking about digital security? You know, you're not Norton antivirus or whatnot. Well, part of our service is to offer the exhibits and transcripts online. And in doing that, that is a lot of confidential information, particularly millions and millions and millions of pages of exhibits that are now online. So we had to make sure that they were secure. So we had to comply with HIPAA, PII regulations, just a whole bunch of stuff to make sure that all this is secure, because these exhibits contain things like medical records. We do thousands of doctor depots every year. Personally identifiable information, that's what PII is. Things like social security numbers, bank account numbers, information like that. And then also trade secrets or intellectual property. We deal with some of the largest companies on the planet, and the amount of trade secrets that are used in trials and as exhibits are numerous. And in kind of going through that whole process over the years, we learned there's really two types of confidential information. First is disposable, and then the second is detrimental. What are the differences? Well, disposable information is something like a credit card. If you lose your credit card, you call up the bank, you say, hey, I lost it, just disable the card, give me a brand new one. You can throw it away and get a brand new copy with little or no harm done. The other kind of information is detrimental. Information that once it's out in the world, you can't put it back. When someone's medical history is public, there's no just getting a brand new medical history. When trade secrets are released, there's you can't just come up with a new formula to Coca-Cola. I was actually just reading about the vault and the security measures they go through. It's kind of crazy. So that means it's important to get it right out of the gate as attorneys. We don't get a second chance to keep our clients' information confidential. And the lens that we're going to look through for every piece of technology we look at tonight is the benefits and the risks associated with that technology. That's really what you have to weigh. There's some technologies that are super useful but not secure. And then, so it's really weighing whether or not that's sensible to use. And it's difficult because technology moves so fast. Here's a great illustration of that. Here is a 5 megabyte hard drive from 1956 literally being loaded via forklift onto a jetliner to be taken across the country. We can now attach that to an email. And then here is a 200 gigabyte flash drive about the size and thickness of your fingernail. It's just mind-blowing how fast things change. So it is difficult to keep up, and we'll do our best tonight to kind of address a lot of those concerns. And again, as I'm going, if there's topics we're not talking about or not digging into enough, please let me know. And if you were questioning my nerd credibility, in the back of your head you're like, nope, we were pretty confident. But if you were, I actually went to the Computer History Museum not too far away, if anyone's ever been, it's actually a really good museum, and took a photograph with that exact hard drive that's being loaded there. It's quite ridiculously large. I put this slide in here just to make sure that I don't go too fast or I give people opportunities to ask any questions. So far it's kind of been like just laying the groundwork, and now we'll start to dig into it. But that said, any questions so far? Are you guys all riveted? I'll take that as a yes. All right, so let's talk about the cloud. This is probably one of the most topical things. Everyone's cloud this, cloud that. Interestingly enough, 51% of people believe that stormy weather can interfere with cloud computing. This is a real survey done by Citrix, you can see down there. So you might be wondering, is our email going to be slower tonight because of the rain? But it won't. But what is the cloud? It seems to be so vague, and there's so many services that are cloud computing, Netflix, the Veritext app, all these different things. So when engineers were diagramming the first few networks and they were drawing where computers were and drawing the lines that showed connections, when it came time to draw a connection over the internet, what shape is the internet? So they would draw a little cloud and write the word internet. And that's where we get the term cloud computing. It's basically anything that utilizes the internet to access information. So when you're watching a Netflix movie, the movie's sitting on some server and you're streaming over to your computer. When you're checking your web mail, that mail is sitting on another computer and you're checking it via your web portal. But this brings up an interesting point for us in the legal field, and I'll actually let a guest ask this question here.
Hello, I'm Siri, the voice assistant in most Apple devices. I would like to open with a joke. What's the difference between a good lawyer and a great lawyer? A good lawyer knows the law. A great lawyer knows the judge. Ha 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 ha. Seriously though, Mike. Would like to ask, is it ethical to use cloud services, like me Siri, in the legal field?
See, totally worth the delay. You're like, we're not questioning your nerd credibility anymore. It is an interesting point though. Are we able to use cloud services in the legal field? The ABA put together a really good chart on this, all of the states that have opinions, and we'll include a link in the handout, so if you practice in multiple states, you can see the different states. But they all really kind of are very similar to what California says, is that yes, it is permitted with reasonable care, and I won't read this whole thing, but really the main thing is who has access to that data and where is it stored? That's really the key. When you are putting your data on somebody's cloud service, where is that going? And more importantly, who can look at that? And if you, how many people here have read the entire iTunes end user license agreement? In the year I've given this talk, 2 people have raised their hands. So I figured you haven't, so I actually had, or prepared a dramatic reading from Richard Dreyfuss on that agreement. So I'll go ahead and play that for you now.
Please read this software license agreement carefully before using the Apple software.
This Apple software is not intended for use in the operation of nuclear facilities, aircraft navigation or communication systems, or air traffic control systems, or life support machines, or other equipment in which the failure of the Apple software could lead to death. Your rights under this license will terminate automatically without notice from Apple if you fail to comply with any terms of this license.
All right. CNET actually paid him to do that. You can watch the whole thing on YouTube again, included in the notes. If you take the time to listen to that whole thing or to actually read it yourself, there's some interesting things in there, particularly around the way Siri works. The way Siri works is it records what you're saying, sends it off to the cloud, to one of Apple's servers, where it's transcribed and then sent back as text. And if you are an iPhone person, and it's same as the way Android works the same way, you'll notice over the years voice transcription has gotten much better because periodically they go back and they look at what's recorded and they look at the text and they kind of improve their algorithms. But this could mean that somebody could potentially see what you're saying. This made one company a little bit nervous. They didn't want their trade secrets being recited and hand-delivered to the competition, so they actually banned the use of Siri on their campus. Now, I'm sure they get billions of requests or Siri recordings every year, but I still would be pretty cautious about not reciting a social security number or anything really confidential on the off chance that somebody might at one point go back and read that. And what's also interesting about this is I think it exemplifies that it's hard with technology these days to know what is a cloud service and what is not. How many people knew that was the way Siri worked? Yeah, it's kind of it's like magic, but you'll notice when you're out somewhere where you don't have reception, it says, oh, I'm sorry, I can't work right now. That's why I can't get access to the servers. So it does mean that occasionally we have to sit down and read those license agreements, or probably more realistically reach out to the software vendors that we're buying stuff from and say, what's the security around this, who has access, see if they have a white paper on it. It is arduous, but I think it is important to look at. Any questions so far? All right.
Yes.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So on cloud computing, how do you know that the service is secure?
It really depends on if they say in their license agreement, where their data is. But probably the best way is to just reach out to them directly and say, where is this data? Now, that might be hard when you just, you can't call up Apple. I guess you could, I've never tried, but a lot of companies, they'll have a white paper or a description of their security. So a lot of the legal applications you use, you can just talk to your rep or the company and say, hey, what's your security? Where's your data? Is it encrypted? Things like that. So unfortunately, I don't think there's a blanket, like, you go here to check, but I would go through those steps.
So if I use Siri to dictate something, an opinion to my client, is that unreasonable? Have I lost the privilege then? Is there any authority on that?
I haven't seen any. I'm sure it'll eventually happen. I would imagine, though, that it isn't unreasonable because you're expecting that it's confidential, and that, I'm sure that there's policies in Apple not to share and divulge that information, and they're taking security very seriously. But I would just err on the side of caution myself, just because I don't know where that info is going. So I know that's kind of a vague answer, but I don't think there's really been anything proven yet. Any other questions? Yes.
I have a question. Is all email considered cloud, or if you have like your own private email, is it on your own server in your own office? Is that not considered a cloud?
It's hard to say. I mean, cloud has become a very kind of ambiguous term. I would say it's better if it's your own, as opposed to like a service like Gmail or AOL or something like that, because then you have more control over the security. Or even if it's hosted somewhere that you've got a hosting program. It's not just at AOL.com. Ultimately, all email is going to use the internet. That's the way it gets sent from you to whoever you're sending it. And generally, most email servers are on the internet. Just either usually it's not even local in your office. It's hosted somewhere. So it's kind of hard to say. I'll talk about some aspects of email that add a layer of security to it, because intrinsically, email is not a very secure method. Once it's on the internet, it's sent as clear text, so it's not encrypted at all. So if somebody were to intercept it, they would be able to see what it is. And that's kind of, and I'll get into that too a little bit around there. Dropbox has become a very hot topic, I think, in the legal field. How many people have used Dropbox here before? So there's a lot of, confusion and controversy around it, so hopefully we'll dispel a little bit of that. Just so everybody knows what Dropbox is and the way it works, it's an incredibly useful service. You install it on your computer and then and various other devices, and then using the cloud or the internet, it will, it's hard to see, there should be, there you go. So it's a little hard to see, but there's the cloud. When you drop something in a folder on one of your machines, it makes a copy on all the other machines that are using Dropbox. So it's a very easy way to get things on and off mobile devices. Also a real easy way to share with people. Other than the security flaw they had back in 2011 when their password system didn't work for a little while, I do think the company takes security very seriously. But what I always say to people is, if you are going to use Dropbox, I really recommend upgrading to the business or the pro plan. I forget what they call it. Because if you look at the settings, it's really hard to see here, it's kind of blown out. In your free account, you really have no settings. You basically can change your password and that's about it. With the professional level, you can add more security as to who can share, what can be shared, things like that. And I think that's often the danger with Dropbox, is that it's so easy to share. So we actually banned the use of Dropbox for Varitek's employees because they were worried that if you had a rogue employee and they took a case file and they put it in their Dropbox on their Varitek's computer, suddenly it's copied on their home computer, their home iPad, their son's iPhone. Now this data is everywhere. And even worse, they can share it with other people, and suddenly it's out of control. So when using cloud services like Dropbox or file services, it's really critical to just make sure that you have that security in place, because it's so easy to just, let me forward this to somebody, or let me put it on my other computer. And the thing that scares IT departments the most is company data on non-company devices, because they have no idea who else has access to it, if there's viruses on it, all this other just unknowns. And that kind of goes right into our next topic, BYOD, not as exciting as BYOB. But this has become a pretty common thing called bring your own device. And I'd be curious to hear feedback from you. If you bring your own phone to work, I'm sure it's happening more and more where people get the fancy new iPhones and Androids and they want to use that as opposed to whatever the firm old phone is. But again, that goes back to the problem of company information on non-company devices and who else can use this phone, and is there a passcode on here, all that. And of course, modern phones like the iPhone and Android and Windows, I'm sure they're all very similar, you can see, have security measures. You can put a passcode on it, and with the thumbprint, it's nice and secure. But I think what always scares is the scariest is if somebody gets your phone while it's unlocked. Let's say it falls out of my pocket while I'm using it, or somebody grabs it out of my hand, and then they turn off the Wi-Fi or turn off the signal so that we can't wipe it remotely using lost my iPhone or whatever, I can't remember what it's called now. And then they have access to everything that's unlocked. They can, work with it. So what companies have done, we've done this ourselves, is move to mobile device management. And this adds a layer of security on the device and a layer of control that you normally wouldn't have. Here are the top, probably the top two most popular. There's more out there. I think it's going to be a really blooming area because there's such a need for this. So we use Good for Enterprise, and I'll speak frankly because they don't pay me, so it's not the best. It is a little slow. It does kind of slow down your email, things like that. But it does add that layer of security. I've heard Mobile Iron is better. I haven't convinced our network people to switch over to it yet. I think we have a long Good contract. But it's definitely something to look into, particularly if you have multiple devices, because this enables you to enforce a password. So we can't get rid of the password even if we wanted to. So you have to force policies down to the devices. And then more importantly, all your information is in a secure capsule so that if somebody steals the phone, they can instantly turn it off. Even if they've disabled the network, they still have control over that information. Has anybody ever used these before? No? You have a question?
Yeah. What does it do?
So you can think of it it basically gives the IT department more control over the phone. So it does two things. One, it's a little hard to see here, but I have to go open a separate app to get my work email, my work calendar, contacts, things like that. And the reason is because there's another layer of encryption around that app. So even if the phone was stolen, and they haven't, they can open up all the apps, they can't open up this one if the IT department has disabled it. The other thing that it can do, and probably I think the more useful, is it can enforce policies on the devices. So you can force your users to have a passcode. You usually have the option. You're like, I don't really care. You can force them to have a passcode. You can force them to have the latest software. There's a lot of other kind of settings that it really gives IT departments more control. And that was always why BlackBerry held on so long, because they gave IT departments all that control. And that was, they were always known for security, and that was why. So these finally kind of open that up to iPhones, Androids, things like that. I don't know if that helps.
It's a software application?
It is, yeah.
On the phone, and then it communicates with the central IT people?
Yep.
Even if the wireless is turned off?
Yeah, because what will happen, I'll show you here on my iPad. So there it is in the corner. When it opens, you see it's checking. Hopefully I don't have any bad emails. You see it was really quickly checking for compliance. So if I was off the network, it wouldn't be able to check. And more importantly, if I was on the network and let's say it was stolen, my IT department would stop it. So again, it has to check before it'll show you anything. Whereas with the email in here, I can just open it up and it's been saved. I didn't, doesn't have to go check it each time. Yes. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to follow up on that. I think a number of us are sole practitioners.
Okay.
And so I think that may still have value for us, even if it's our only email that we're using on the phone. For instance, it may be, but that it sounds like still provides a security that we wouldn't otherwise have. And if you can explain that a little bit.
Yeah, it definitely would. Now, I have no idea what the pricing would be for single users. And actually, that's something I will look into because that's a really great point. I mean, I work with a lot of big firms, but also a ton more small firms, and so I don't know what would be if one of these. Let me go back to the slide. If one of those would be good for solo, or if there's another lower cost one. But I'll find out, and maybe in the email I'll put that in, or over the next couple of days I'll find out. Because yeah, I think regardless if you have one attorney or 1,000 attorneys, having that extra control is good. So that if it is lost, you can disable it and not be worried. So great question. I wish I had cookies to give away as prizes. Good questions. You had a question?
Well, I was just going to add to, I use Mobile Iron, and for instance, what it can do is every time I go to open a file, an attachment from my work email, I have to log in through Mobile Iron. I have to put a password in that document. So it's that extra layer.
Is Mobile Iron fast?
It's fast.
Yeah.
It's super fast.
That's our biggest complaint about Good is that it's like, let me go get your email.
Weekend's good, and never had a speed issue.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if somebody sends me an email, it gets to my phone before it gets to the desktop.
So yeah, I see that, but then when I go to open the email, it's like, hold on, let me Yours is still fast?
Yeah.
All right, then I'm going to talk to our network guys. 'Cause
Yeah.
they blamed it on good, but now I know. They are lying. I only have so much control at Veritext. Good to know. Good feedback. Any other questions, thoughts?
I'm just curious, so I have an iPhone, I put my thumb on it, it opens. If I don't have my phone, someone can't use my thumbprint, they don't know my password. So why would I use this?
The one scenario that I think it's really good for is if you left your phone unlocked for whatever reason, and somebody picked it up and grabbed it.
Unlocked. It locks in like 5 seconds, so.
I mean, if you have it set on the immediate, with all security, I think it's a matter of layers. You know, there's always, you could even go crazier. Before you open your email, it has to have dual-factor authentication, which we'll talk about. And I think it depends, and that's where it'll be interesting to find one for smaller or solo firms. Is it worth all of this? That this is like necessary. If you have 20 or 50 people, you got to have this because it's the only way to really manage all those devices everywhere. But for a smaller firm, maybe it's not. Either way, the more layers you put in, the better chance you're going to have of keeping it secure. So it's a valid point, and that's also we'll talk about when we get to passwords too. That's the teeter-totter of security. It's making it so secure that it's unusable, or so easy that it's not really secure. And the smart things that iPhone and Android have done is they realize security is their thing, and they are getting better and better and better. The thumbprint was a huge leap forward because I would say barely anybody had passcodes on it before then. Yes?
The one place I say just from personal experience, because I have a spouse who has that on their computer, and I do think that there are probably some benefits because when you're working at home, I don't know that our internet service setup, what Comcast gives us, the ability to make that secure, is as much as that is. Is there any merit to that, or is that?
A lot of that would, we'll kind of actually get into an aspect of that around that. And then let me see if that answers your question. Otherwise, circle back. It's hard to say. I'm not exactly sure what you're getting at, but let's see if that addresses it, and then we'll come back if it doesn't. All right, this is great. I like it when there's a discussion and it's much more interactive. Let's talk about virtual depositions. This has really increased in popularity as litigation spans the country, if not the world. Now, for starters, if it's your client or an expert or a key witness, you're going to get in a plane, you're going to travel there. Nothing will ever replace a face-to-face deposition. But we kept seeing people wanted to do these for third parties, or maybe the weather was adverse, or client was pushing back on travel, a lot of different reasons. So people started trying other things. First thing they tried was Telephonic Depo. Anybody ever been on one of those? How many people love those? All the hands go down. It's really difficult. Everyone's talking over each other. You can't really see anybody, what their expressions are. Then people started looking at video conferencing, and this is really great. You're up on a big HD screen. You can see each other. Then what we kept running into is if this was in a remote location, we would rent the equipment, and it would literally be hundreds per hour. It's just insane, the rates for video conferencing. So people started thinking these ideas fall short, and I like that animation. Nowadays, we all have laptops or desktops with good internet speed and usually a built-in webcam. Why don't we do it virtually, through the computer? And of course, people's first thought was, well, why don't we use Skype? It's free. We use it all the time to talk to relatives. Well, let me show you why Skype might be great for personal use, but not really geared towards the enterprise use. I'll play this from the Zimmerman trial in Florida, if you guys remember that from a number of years ago, where they tried to use it for some testimony.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you shall present will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Or criminal profiling?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. No other questions, John.
Red Cross.
It's someone calling the destination. Oh yeah, just get the call.
I'm really capable of this computer.
That's all right.
Hold on, I'm just flying.
gotta tell you, there's now a really good chance that we're being toyed with. Just so you know.
Is there another phone that we can call into? That's not a cell phone? Is there Okay. Turn down the volume. Is there another phone that we can call into that is a landline that we will not have the pop-ups of people calling?
Well, the pop-up that they're calling on is the
Hang up the phone.
Love the judge in that. Now, hopefully, your deposition won't be nationally televised and everyone decides to call you and tell you you're on TV. But I think it exemplifies that Skype is great for personal use, but needs a little bit more security and settings around it for the legal field. So what do you need to do this properly? Well, you do need a computer with an internet connection. It is web-based, so you do have to have pretty good internet. I wouldn't do this off of like a hotel Wi-Fi or Starbucks hotspot or something. Definitely want to do it on a wired connection, maybe in an office or home. A camera if you want to be seen, but you actually don't have to be on camera, and I'll talk to that in a minute. And then a phone for the audio, and we generally recommend that because most people don't have good microphones on their computer. But if you did have a good one, you actually could do the entire thing just through your computer. So we ended up partnering with Adobe to utilize their Connect platform, and this enables a lot of security. You have a username, you have a passcode, and a room passcode. So nobody's getting in there unless they actually belong and have all of those credentials. The other great thing is that it's web-based. You don't have to install any software. You don't have to go set up a Skype account, which was one of the things that we were dealing with in the beginning. Was like we have to set up accounts for everybody, and it was just not feasible. So here's what it looks like. It's obviously a fake one because they keep smiling. Nobody does that in real depos. But you have the video up at the top, probably the most important, and everything is kind of a la carte. So you can have just the video and text. You can kind of decide what you need. You can have up to 99 participants up there. So just imagine the Brady Bunch on steroids. But the other great thing is you don't have to be on camera. So if you just want to watch what's going on, or maybe you want to sit in on a co-counsel's depot or associate depot, or your mediation, you want people back at the firm to watch. There's a lot of different use cases. You can just watch what's going on. We do that all the time. Below there is the text. That's actually a little hard to see on the projector, but what the court reporter is writing in real time, which is great if you are remote. If you get distracted or called away, you can reference back what you missed. The documents we'll talk about in a minute, and then it's very hard to see on the projector, but there's a chat window down in the corner, so you actually can send messages back and forth. Again, really great if you have an associate and you want to send them pointers along the way or feed them questions. The text, we implemented some new features. You actually can highlight and notate the text, just like you would in fancier software like LiveNote, things like that. So you actually can start working on the transcript as you're going. But more interestingly is how do you deal with documents when everyone is in different places? We have a document pod where you can load PDF copies of the documents that you're going to use, and you can load as many as you want, and then no one will see them until you actually hit present, so you can have a whole bunch that you might pick from. Once you do that, it's going to show everyone in the conference the document. You can actually delegate control to different people, so they can, you can say, can you zoom in, Mr. Witness or Mrs. Witness, and show me the part you're talking about. There's even annotation tools, just like an Adobe Acrobat. They can highlight, mark up, things like that. And then you can actually stamp it with the official exhibit sticker. And what it does is saves a high-quality PDF of that document that is then printed out and attached to the original transcript. So it's a really great way to deal digitally with documents, but still get physical exhibit at the end. Any questions on that? We have definitely seen that explode in popularity, something to kind of keep in mind in the future. A couple of pointers: don't use Skype. I think we learned that lesson. Secure login, indicate that it's a virtual deposition in your notice so that everybody is aware, and that all participants must be listed. We sometimes get people calling up saying, can you secretly set up a camera in the room? And no, we don't do that. All right. Yes?
Is this a hosted service, or is this something that so you sign up with a Veritext product?
It is. So what the question, thank you. See, you're good. The question was, is this a hosted service, or how, is it a Veritext product? How do you go about getting it? So we actually, yeah, it is Veritext. We partner with Adobe, so they host it on their Connect platform, which is, you can think of like, kind of like a Webbased, but with much more secure. And then you just pay for it as needed, like per depot. So I didn't introduce Eric. Eric is our local, Eric Larson over there in the back, is our local person. I'm actually from Los Angeles, but like it better up here, so don't hate me. So he can give you, more detailed price information if you need that. So thank you. Stay on. Any other questions? Yes.
I was just going to say that you see Skype interviews on TV lately. At least I've seen that, so maybe they're getting a little better.
Yeah, and I think, to me, it's risky and it's difficult for two reasons. One, because if you're using like a personal Skype, you don't know who else is going to call you, just like what happened there. And I think more importantly is not everyone has Skype accounts, and because we tried it in the beginning, we thought, well, let's go with free. Free's always better. But then we had to find out everyone's username and not password, but usernames, set up a conference, and then to have larger numbers. They might have gotten more numbers now, but back in the day it was capped at like 5 people could be in the conference at a time. So maybe it's worth looking back at. But I do see it in newscasters, and I mean, I guess if you have a good connection, but to me it's a little risky. So, good point. And the question was, you see it in newscasting, what would be the difference? Are they getting any better? So, we'll do it Jeopardy style. Tell the question at the end. So, now let's talk about keeping information out of the hands of unintended recipients, or what we all fear, hackers. Again, going back to what I said at the beginning, there's a lot of different, companies are being hacked all the time. We hear about it. And, it's such a term that's thrown around, target's hacked, this is hacked, that is hacked. So what is hacking? Well, I think before we talk about what it is, I love to talk about what it isn't. My favorite thing is watching how Hollywood portrays hackers. So I'm going to play just a very short excerpt from my favorite movie, Hackers. Anybody remember that movie from 1995, Angelina Jolie's first movie? Let me play just 30 seconds here.
There's a new virus in the database.
What's happening?
It's replicating, eating up memory. What do I do?
Type cookie, you idiot. I'll head him off at the pass.
You have a 0-bug attack, an old login, and overlay file.
Run antivirus. Give me a systems display.
Down 126. Nope, get that 10 to 40. And 1 to 6.
Die. Rabbit is in the administration system. Send a flu shot.
Rabbit, flu shot, someone talk to me.
A rabbit replicates till it overloads a file, then it spreads like cancer.
Cancer?
Okay, I could literally watch that whole movie, but I won't. Hacking is nothing like that. None of the things they show is real. I still don't have a cool neon keyboard like that, or 3-dimensional viruses that tip tanker ships. What's interesting, though, I don't know if anybody that came in early has watched the recent show Mr. Robot on AMC. I forget what network it's on. FX. Thank you. Everything that he does is 100% real. If you stop and look at the screens he's looking at, the tools he's using, 100% accurate. They actually even reference that Hackers movie in there. It's quite a good show. But it is the first time I've seen in Hollywood where they actually show what hacking is, because it's not terribly sexy. Most of the time it looks like this. They're looking at command windows and source code, looking for exploits, things like that. This is an actual hacking platform, if you will, and you can see it's quite boring. Now, there's a lot of different hacks, and I'm sure every hack is different. Every company, there's always a new exploit or some other quirk, but I'm just going to take a look at one today. But I do think it is actually becoming quite prevalent, and that is called packet sniffing. And this deals with wireless internet or Wi-Fi hotspots. When you're on your phone at the airport and you're connecting to the Wi-Fi or Starbucks, whatever, when you're sending information, it's going in packets. That it's cut up in little packets, sent through the air to the Wi-Fi router, and then it's sent to the cloud here, and then to the server. And that's the way it works. It cuts them up, sends them in little packets through the air to where it's going. And if somebody else is out there, they can listen to those packets or capture them and see everything that you're doing on the internet. How do they do this? And then we'll look at how to stop it. Well, they utilize an application called Wireshark. can actually download it tonight. It's a free download. And what this does is it just captures everything that's floating through the air on that Wi-Fi network. Here you can see is a recording of my one computer on my home network, so pretty much nothing. You can see how much information is being sent every second, and that's just from surfing around the web. And if somebody was to capture all that information and dig through it, there's a lot of garbage in there, but if you keep digging, you can actually find some very useful information. Now, I was just searching the web, but this could easily be, going back to email, this could easily be an email, or if you're entering something on a private web portal or something like that. So, how do we prevent this? Well, we can use something called a VPN, or virtual private network. And what this does is this creates a secure tunnel between where you're going, or where you and where you're going. The data still has to go through the air. I mean, that's the way Wi-Fi works. But it will all be garbled up, encrypted, so that if somebody does get a copy of it, they're going to have no idea what it says. And all your traffic will go through that tunnel. So as you're sending it, again, it's a little blown out, it's going to get to the secure location without them getting access. For instance, at Veritext, we cannot even check our email. If we go into Outlook on our laptop at a hotspot and hit send, receive, nothing will come through until it knows it's on a secure line. And I think email is the most dangerous because it is sent, usually in the clear. It's a real way for passwords to leak, all that kind of information. And I actually was burned on this when I wasn't practicing what I preached on my personal email. I'm pretty sure when I was at a hotel, that's how somebody got my Gmail and started spamming everyone I knew. So I do think this is probably one of the more common ones that hits, everyday people, and it's just something to keep in mind. Now, VPNs can be, complicated and expensive, and maybe you already have them. This is a great one, going back to your point about solo firms. This, I think, is a great one for personal or for small firms. ProXPN. It's really inexpensive. You can set it up on mobile devices. Very easy to set up. That's one I would recommend. But I would also check with your IT department because you can set these up through Cisco routers and Microsoft. There's a whole bunch of different ways to do it. But really recommend that one, especially for road warriors, because you really don't know in hotels or cafe hotspots who else is on there. Airports scare me the most because who knows who's going through there. So yes.
Is the same concern there if you're, instead of connecting to their Wi-Fi network, you're using your own data plan?
So the question was, if you're connecting to a Wi-Fi hotspot rather than using your data plan, is there a difference, basically? So I think it's more secure. I don't know, at least any easy way, if any way at all, to hack the cell networks and see their traffic. So it'd be way less of a concern. And I wouldn't worry about it. But anytime you're on a network, a public network, like a hotspot or a library or something like that, I would definitely worry about it. That answer the question? Yeah. Yes?
So when it gets to the other side, how does it know how to unencrypt it?
So it said when it gets to the other side, how does it know to unencrypt it? So what it does is it doesn't encrypt the actual contents. It just encrypts the traffic. So when you're sending the email through here to the server, it's all garbled up until it gets to the server. You've basically created a tunnel between you and the server. So the server knows what you're sending, and you know what you're sending. When you go to your online banking and you see HTTPS, the S is for secure, and what that means is with that one website, you now have a secure tunnel, which is how we can online bank and not worry about it. So in theory, if you do have a webmail, and that webmail has HTTPS, that is basically a secure connection. You don't have to worry about the VPN. What's nice about the VPN is it encapsulates everything. So if you have your email going into Outlook, you're doing other websites, kind of keeps it all together. So hopefully that makes sense. Yes?
So how do you get an email to a client using a VPN system?
So once it gets to the question is how you get an email to a client using VPN. The VPN will be transparent really to you and the client, because all it ensures is that anytime you're talking to your email server, nobody else can listen to that. Once it goes from your email server to theirs, that's kind of in their hands. However, it does bring up a good point. How can we ensure that an email is secure the whole way? I mean, you only have control over your half of it. So that's a perfect segue into email concerns. And one of the issues we faced as a company is how do we email transcripts and exhibits? People all the time say, hey, can you just email me that transcript? Email me that transcript. Now, if we go to our web portal, that has the S, it's all secure, but how do we deal with email? So the way that we dealt with this is we don't actually send you the file, we send you a link to the file. And you'll notice here, this is an example, it just says click here to download. Now, this is good because one, that link expires after a period of time, so somebody would have to intercept your email right away to get it. And then and on top of that, if we know there's some sort of breach, if you say, hey, my email's been hacked, we can disable those links automatically. So it's still not perfect if somebody's sitting right there and they're checking your email at the same speed you are, but it does kind of add that layer that if you know something's awry, it's going to disable that link. You guys with me so far? So people ask, they say, well, that's great with transcripts. How do I do it when I want to communicate with my clients or experts and things like that? We just released a new cloud collaboration tool called Law Studio that allows you to do that. You can upload your files into the cloud and then simply click on them, and you can actually generate, that's very hard to see up there, you can generate those secure links to that file. You just drop that in the email, and what's nice is I can set expiration dates, I can set expiration times, I can set it down to the minute. If I say, hey, I'm going to send you the email in the next 5 minutes, and then that link is dead. And then more importantly, I can set a password. And this is what I recommend when you're working with a client, over the phone, verbally establish a simple password, and we'll talk about passwords later. And then, even if somebody gets the email and you don't know about it, it's going to be secure. So I set all those things, I create a link. But what's also nice is there's an Outlook plugin. So if you use Outlook, you just click the little button up at the top, and it's going to show you all your files. You pick the one you want. Again, set your expiration date, number of downloads, and then it drops the link right into the email, and you can say, hey, here's the files. Also a great way to deal with large files. If you have like a 50 megabyte client, case file you need to send somebody, you can deal with that. So that is really new, so it won't be in the packet, the ebook we send, but I'll include information at the bottom of the email about that so that you can have information if you want to try it out. All right, we're doing great on time. Any questions or anecdotes?
So is that a product that you're selling?
Yes, this is a brand new Veritext product.
How much is it?
It is, I'll have to check, I think it's $99 a month. I'll include the information in the email because we're not supposed to get too many prices on the CLEs, but I'll definitely include the information. So, good question. Oh, I won't repeat the question because I'll include the email about the product information is the question. I'm so bad at this. All right, let's, you know what, as long as we're on here, I'm curious to kind of to hear. So one of the things we've run into is we're getting, I wouldn't say pushback, but requirements from our clients' clients. For instance, when we're working with a firm that's working with a pharmaceutical company, we have had them come out and do security audits on us because they, these companies who have taken security very seriously for years are now realizing, wait a minute, our data is not just on our servers, it's on our attorney servers, it's on the court reporter servers, it's, so it's all over. So have anybody had any pushback from their clients on security, either audits or, hey, what are your practices? Looks like no. I would imagine soon. I hear it more and more. I mean, depending on the type of law that you do and the kind of clients you work with as well, it obviously varies. But we've seen it with banks and pharmaceutical companies, and I'm sure it'll just kind of trickle down. So, yes.
With the VPNs, I mean, that seems like kind of a standard thing that everyone will need. And is there something you can tell us about industry-wide what you're seeing as far as certain types that bigger clients want and that sort of thing?
So the question was, is VPN standard across the industry, and what kind of clients are expecting, or what they're expecting as far as VPN?
Within the VPN, if there are different types of VPN, is there a special grade we should be looking for?
No, there's not really. I mean, each brand, I'm sure, will come up with something like we're better because as long as they're using the latest kind of encryption tools, which I'm sure they all are, that's really what's key. There isn't too much variety and strengths of VPN. What I think it more comes down to, what you might see from banks and things like different companies, is where the data is and the restrictions around it. For instance, pharmaceutical companies come in and say you can't email anything of ours. We don't want it in email, period. You have to either send it through your secure web portal where people log in or some other method. Now that's maybe a little overly paranoid. Again, they're dealing with super sensitive stuff. And email is difficult because it was never intended to be a secure method of delivery. It's sent in the clear. It was meant to just be, university students chit-chatting back and forth about papers. It was never designed to send super confidential information. That's why you see a lot of patchwork around it to try to make it work. Why you see these links, things like that. So while a VPN will help, your email to get to your server, as I was saying earlier, if the other server is compromised, there's still somebody's going to get it on that side. So it's a difficult process. So, for all intents and purposes, I would try to avoid it with really sensitive information, unless you're doing something like a link like this with a password on it, because it's so hard to control the whole way. But if you can, on your side, make sure that you have VPN in place, you have these security practices, that's just going to be better for your firm. So I know it's kind of vague, but email is a dangerous thing, or can be. All right, let's move on to passwords, and then we'll. Oh yeah, go ahead.
So you say email is a dangerous thing. Are there any studies or information about how often emails are compromised? Is it happening every day, or is it sort of 1 in a million?
So the question was, because I said email is dangerous, how often, has any studies been on how often emails are compromised? I have not seen any. I should find some. I'm probably going to do that now and add some stats in, because that would actually be quite interesting. I wouldn't venture a guess, but how many times have we received spam from people saying, regardless, I'm in Nigeria, or buy this pill, or actually I was talking to an attorney. I gave this talk 2 days ago. She said her email was compromised. Somebody sent out an email going, I'm stuck in Nigeria or somewhere, at gunpoint, send $5,000 to all of her clients. And you can imagine just like how embarrassing that is. So it's really hard to say, but I'd say it's a pretty common thing.
That's capturing some kind of address list, or going and getting a contact list and shooting something out. That's not capturing some document that's included in the email that could be sensitive.
How often does that happen? Oh, so the question was, that's a good point. That's one if you get somebody's address book. Usually, though, how often, though, if somebody's intercepted a document, a sensitive document, usually, though, they do get, by sending out to all those people from that person's address, they have to have access to their email. Now, the question is, do they go through and look for anything sensitive? I don't know. I'd have to look it up and see if there's been any breaches because of that. It wouldn't surprise me if there was, but I'll look up for some stats, because it would be a great slide to put in here. So I'll definitely, for nothing else, do it for that.
Glad I could.
You have a question?
I was just going to comment. I work for a large financial institution, and we get emails all the time, supposedly from clients that have account numbers, middle initials, mother's maiden name, social security numbers, absolutely everything. And it's, I'm in a vital meeting. I need $50,000 sent to this account right now. I won't be able to speak to you by phone if you call. But it's urgent this be done right away. We get those all the time.
That's a great example. So he was saying he works at a financial institution, and they get emails all the time with sensitive information from their clients saying, I need money, send it to me, and they're all, scams. It's interesting. I think I just recently finished a book on what they call social engineering, which I think is just a fancy way of saying conning people into getting that information. And that probably is, I think, becoming, as security is getting better and better, humans are still the weakest link. And so I think that would be another great talk. But that's great information, real world information. So.
Well, the clients are always stunned to find out that it's out there. We just say, I don't care if it's life and death. If we don't hear your voice on the other end of a phone number, we know it's not happening. And you call them, and they're just stunned that these people have all this information.
Well, so he was saying that the people are stunned when they find out of all this information. Well, at the end, I'll show you maybe one of the ways that they get that information. There's probably a myriad of ways, but I think, and I'll give you a personal story too as well. So that's very interesting. Yes.
Just to clarify, we're talking about sometimes when we're at public places, like an airport or a hotel, and we're presumably us are on those places a lot of the time. So if you're on, if you don't have a VPN, and you go into your personal, let's say you go into your personal email where you didn't have the VPN, when that happened, would the person not only be able to see all your email stuff, but if that's what happened, would they also be able to look at all of your Word documents, everything that's on your computer?
Okay, so the question was, if you're at a hotspot and somebody is looking, doing the packet sniffing and they can see your email traffic, can they also see your Word docs and your things like that? No, not unless you sent the password, while you're online, because all they're seeing is what's going via Wi-Fi traffic. So the way Wi-Fi works is it has to send it through the air. It's just the way it works. So everything else is secure on your computer, assuming you have a password and all that. But when it has to actually send information out, that's when it's out in the world and anybody can listen. If I'm shouting something, anybody can hear. I can't control just who hears it. You can think of it that way. But no, they won't have access to your computer. Now, that's a great segue into passwords, because one of the issues is most people have the same password for their email as they do their computer and their bank account and their Twitter account and their Facebook account. So if they get their email password, you happen to send it while you're logging in or something, you better believe they're going to try that on your machine or other accounts. So here is a password, there's a word cloud for the most popular passwords used last year. The bigger the word, the more common it was used. You'll also notice I had to blur out a fair number of them because some of you guys have very dirty minds when coming up with passwords. Before we get into passwords, let's look at the top 10 from last year. Please raise your hand when your password is shown. That actually worked once. Somebody's like, oh, that one's mine.
Seriously?
Oh, you would? Yeah.
Seriously?
I like number 9. Pretty adorable. Yeah, it is seriously, and it's every year. It's about these same passwords. Maybe they shift order a little bit. Or another one is probably would be up here if everyone worked for the same company. Is just company name, or company name year. So why is it important to have a hard password? Well, hackers do what's called a brute force attack, which is akin to them guessing every single word in the dictionary until they get your password. Now, they obviously don't do this by hand. They have a computer they have a program that will run through and guess and guess and guess and guess. But people go, you know what? Why would they go after me? They don't know my username, or I'm not a famous person. They're not going to try to get my cell phone pictures. It's not personal. They basically will look for any account, any login, username, and password, and hit it until they get access, and then go find out what they got access to. Here is an actual attempt on Veritext. So you're probably never going to see it, but here you can see they were literally going through the alphabet in alphabetical order. There's Gold, there's Grace, there's Goldberg, there's Golf coming up. They were just going through, guessing and guessing until they got access. Luckily, security blocked them well in advance. They didn't get access to anything. But you can see, they were just going to guess until they got something and then figure out what they got. So, how do we prevent this, or how do we have a secure password? Well, luckily there's a website called Howsecureismypassword.net where you type in your password and it'll tell you if it's secure. Now some of you might be going, wait a minute, I just type in my password and there you have it. Now, I wouldn't actually put in my real password. I think this is more for demonstration purposes because I don't know what they're doing with all those passwords. Maybe that's how they got the top 10 list from before. But it's great to kind of illustrate a point. So let's try it. Let's start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can see that would be cracked instantly because it is one of the top 10 passwords. Okay, fine. We'll try something a little bit more complicated. Let's try Lawfield 1. Do letters and numbers. That would take a current computer only 6 days to crack. So they started on a weekend, they come back next weekend, they have all of your information. All right, fine. How about 0, lowercase I, lowercase p, lowercase u, uppercase m, uppercase x, lowercase e, uppercase, etc., etc., etc. That would take 157 billion years for a current computer to crack. It would take equally as long for me to memorize that, especially to have a different password for every single site. So again, we go back to that thing at the beginning. We talked about that teeter-totter, usability versus security. So what do? Well, there's an application called LastPass. And There's a couple of them out there, but this is my favorite. And this is a password vault. And what this is you have a username and a password to get in, so you do have to have one complicated password. Use your favorite mnemonic to memorize it. And once you're in, you enter in all your usernames and passwords. Now you might be going, whoa, wait a minute. What do we know? They're not just keeping a record of all this. Well, this is what's called locally encrypted. Only you, with that password on the screen prior, can see that information. As far as LastPass can tell, it's just all garbled up. And they have been vetted by the top internet security consultants, so we do know that it is legit. So even if they decided to go rogue, they still can't see your data unless they have that initial username and password. So, how does it work? Well, when you get to a website, it will first of all offer you, when you're signing up for an account, a really crazy password if you want to use it, or you can type your own, or if you already have an account, you can enter in your password. And then whenever you go back to that website, it'll say, oh hey, you have an account for Dropbox. Here's your username and password. It fills it in for you automatically. So this enables a couple of things. One, you can have very complicated passwords that you don't have to remember. And more importantly, you can have multiple passwords, or different passwords for all the different sites. This thing is probably my favorite tool. Not even if I wasn't going to do the complicated passwords, just trying to remember passwords for the myriad of sites we have to go to is a nightmare. So highly recommended. It's free on the desktop. On the mobile device, I think it's $1 per month, something nominal. Well worth it. Question?
Is this an app that you have to have running in the background all the time while you're using your computer so that it will access, or it's not something that's on all the time?
So the question is it going to have to run all the time in order for it to work with this? Good question. So the way it works is it's actually a plugin for your browser. And it works on Safari, Chrome, Internet Explorer, all the major ones. So it'll run up at the top, and when you navigate to a site that you have this account, for instance, Dropbox, I don't know if you can see, it's a little blown out, but when I got here, it popped up and it said, oh, hey, you want to autofill your password? And it'll autofill it for me. So it's just that little plugin that runs.
So it's running in the background, but say someone else hops on your computer then?
Ah, yes. So the question is, what if somebody else
on
gets on your computer? Yes, you can hit the button. It's really hard to see here. It's a little asterisk is their icon.
So it's
you
kind of
just
like
hit it to
Chrome.
log
You
off.
hit yes or no when you want it to remember things, except it's password protected and it's a storage.
It's exactly like Chrome. Now, I've never looked in, because a lot of browsers now are starting to do that. I've never looked at the security behind browsers storing passwords, because I have just used this, and I know that it is secure. But it's the same premise. And I think the browsers started doing it because companies like this became really popular with users. This is the one I use, and probably one of the leaders, but there's also OnePass, I think. OnePass, yeah. There's a couple of other ones. Dashlane, yeah, I keep hearing that one. That one seems to be getting more popular. So it just makes the nightmare of passwords so much more doable. Question?
If you load it on each device, independently runs, you can have different passwords for different devices, or is it all one file?
So the question is, do you run it on multiple devices, and then can you have different passwords for different devices? So you do run it on each device that you access. So I have it on my home computer, work computer. You only have one password vault, so it'll follow you wherever you go. But you can have multiple accounts. So let's say I had 3 Dropbox accounts, or 3 Citibank accounts, whatever. Yeah. It'll ask you which of these 3 do you want to log in. So you do have that flexibility if you have multiple accounts that way. But it's the same vault that follows you from device to device.
So do I make the passwords, or does it make them for me?
Question is, does he make the passwords, or does it make it for you? You can decide. It'll give you an option if I go back. So here, I can use one of their crazy ones, or I could say, no, forget it, just use this one. For instance, if I already had an account set up somewhere and I don't want to change the password, I can just type it in as is, and then it'll remember it. So it's optional. But I often, at least with new sites, will use this, because it's so hard sometimes to fit those requirements, when they're like, it has to have 7 letters in alphabetical order with an asterisk, they're just like, it's so difficult. This do it automatically.
Legitimate question.
Legitimate.
As opposed to just waving at you. When you say locally encrypted, what does that mean?
It basically means that unless they have your username and password, they can't see it. Sometimes information will be stored. When we looked at a VPN, both people have access to that data on each side from the way that encryption works. The only person who can get into that info is you. LastPass doesn't have some unencrypted copy somewhere else on their servers. And sometimes that's what things, services will do, is they'll have a copy on their servers that's not encrypted for, whatever reason. Right. So because this has such sensitive information, they wanted to make sure you are the only one who can actually get to it. Hopefully that makes sense.
Well, I'd like to think that that's the way it works all the time, but apparently not. So
you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. More companies are taking it seriously and getting better at it. But I mean, did you guys hear about LifeLock a couple weeks ago?
No.
Oh my God! So LifeLock was you remember the guy got up and said, "Here's my social security number. I believe in this so much. We'll protect your identity." Which, funny enough, right after that, 4 people stole his identity. So they stopped running that commercial. But recently, they were, I forget how this got out, all of the customer information on their servers was saved unencrypted. The whole company is designed to keep your identity safe, and they didn't even protect their own data. I mean, if that doesn't scare you, I don't know what does. It's a really, look it up. I couldn't believe. I just was like, yeah. So, yep, you'd be surprised. All right. Oh, good. Yeah, we're actually perfect on time. Multi-factor authentication. What if you are lazy, you've completely ignored me all night, and your password is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and somebody guesses your password? Well, you can add another layer of security called multi-factor authentication. What is that? Well, when we log in at Varitek, this is actually our login, you see I have my username and password. Everybody knows that's pretty routine. But I also have to provide a token code. And we actually have to carry around with us these little devices that create what seems to be a random number, but is actually based on an algorithm. There you can actually see. And I have to type that in. So what that means is that somebody not only has to have my username and password, but physical access to this device. So again, it's all about layers, adding another layer, and this adds a real strong layer. And I would be willing to bet that you have this at your firm. Yeah, definitely. All banks.
On the right.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, the RSA. That's the encryption. So yeah, banks and financial institutions have had this for a long time. Does anybody else have these? So again, it depends on the size of your firm. Maybe overkill for solo. Also depends on the type of law that you do. I mean, even if you were solo, but you're dealing with a lot of institutions, with banks and things, something to think about. A lot of other services, like Gmail, for instance, and a couple of other ones, will do this on your phone. So they will text you the number. Like Chase, I know I use Chase Bank. They'll text me the number. So it just, again, has that extra layer that somebody now has to have my phone and my username and my password. So I think it's way easier to carry this around than these little devices. So, simple thing to do, but adds a pretty strong layer that ensures somebody won't get into your stuff. I have my obligatory question slide. Any questions so far? All right, well, let's wrap up here, and then we'll kind of open it up for questions or anecdotes. I do, as I'm going, if you have personal stories of, this person was hacked, or we had a client who required this, or I love to kind of gather those up. It's always interesting to hear real world feedback. Where do computers go when they die? Not just a metaphysical question, but actually pretty important for security. And I think this might go back to when your client, or not your clients, but it was your clients whose information was lost. This might be the way it happened. When you e-cycle, or do e-waste, generally what happens, it's put in a shipping container and shipped over to Africa, a little place called Obligashi, Ghana, which is considered to be the world's digital dumping ground. You can actually see it on Google Maps. Aside from the moral implications of sending our toxic e-waste to a third world country, there's also a security concern. And the reason is because people are going through those computers and pulling the hard drives and looking at the information that's on them. Here you can actually see some computers from the government of Ghana itself. Frontline did a phenomenal piece on this. Let me play just a minute for you on that.
There's a hidden danger Many of these drives still contain the personal data of the original owners. Off camera, Ghanaians admit to us that organized criminals sometimes comb through these drives for personal information to use in scams. So we decided to buy some hard drives of our own to see what's on them. Within minutes, he shows us intimate details of people's lives, files left behind by the hard drive's original owners.
Wow.
And we find private financial data too, credit card numbers, account information, records of online transactions the original owners may not have realized were even there.
So that might have been the way. I mean, again, there's a myriad of ways, but it wouldn't surprise me if that's some of the ways they've done it. And I could not convince Varitek to send me to Ghana so I could do an investigative journalism expose. But I was actually just in our San Francisco office, whichever way that is, doing this talk, and somebody said, oh, hey, we have that in our building. You go up to the whatever floor, you just leave your old computers, and the management will pick them up once a quarter. And I thought, that's interesting. So I grabbed a screwdriver, I went up there, and I pulled a couple hard drives. Literally, the first one that I plugged in, no encryption, had a folder under my documents called bank, and in there was all of their bank account information. I could not have planned it better. It was like right out of the movie Hackers. So if it doesn't happen in Ghana, it's going to happen because of punks like me. So what do? Well, let's turn to the DoD. Oh, actually, before we do that, let's talk about hard drives, because they're actually quite fascinating. Somebody might say, well, why can't I just say select all and hit delete? Done, empty the trash, move on. Well, the way hard drives work is kind of interesting. When you write a file to a hard drive, it'll, there we go, write the information to the drive. When you delete the file, it doesn't actually delete the file. You can kind of see it there, so it's hard to see in the projector. What it does is it tells the hard drive, hey, this is open space. If you need more room, just go ahead and write over this stuff. But the data is still there. That's how if you've ever accidentally deleted something or your computer's crashed and you go to a data recovery expert, that's how they're able to pull that information back. What makes this even harder is that hard drives are everywhere, even places we didn't realize they were, like in these guys. Most modern copiers have built-in hard drives that keep a copy of every single thing that copier has copied to make it faster, to make reprints. Another group of journalists bought a copier from a healthcare company, a used copier, pulled the hard drive, pulled all kinds of medical information, and that healthcare company was fined due to HIPAA regulations $1.2 million. So this is a very real thing. So what do? Now let's turn to the DoD for some recommendations on getting rid of data. The first one is to overwrite all addressable locations with a character, its complement, and then a random character and verify. With me? I'll explain it. And then the next one is to disintegrate, incinerate, pulverize, shred, or melt. And I don't get to use that animation very often. So let's look at the first one. How do you do that, and what was it talking about? Well, like I said, it leaves free space on the computer, so you need a program to go through and basically just scribble all over the hard drive until all the information is filled up, and then just scribble over it again. So that whatever was on there, it's totally written over, no one could possibly retrieve it. There's an application called Kill Disk, and there's a lot of different options. This happens to be one of them. That allows you to do this. You can plug in a hard drive, and actually you get a drop down of how many times you want to overwrite it. You can see there's the Air Force at 3 passes, different things like that. There's these crazy internet security guys that say do it 35 times, which I think is totally insane. We just did this once recently on a hard drive with 3 passes, and it took 4 hours. So 35 passes would take, I don't even know how long. So this is great because then you can donate it and give it to somebody, whatever. But what if you're doing this for your whole firm? You got 5 computers, 10 computers, 100 computers. Imagine 3 hours per drive. I mean, this is who's got time for all that. So what we actually do, because of the same reasons, we work with our shredding company, and most shredding companies will do this. They'll do digital shredding, if you will, where they will pick up your hard drives, CDs, flash drives, and put them into one of these guys. You guys can kind of see that there. And actually physically destroy the drive so that there's, you'll see here in a second, no way somebody can retrieve information off of that. It's kind of cathartic, isn't it? So That's much easier. Yes,
Not
question?
necessarily the whole software wipe thing, but that's happening too.
Oh, at that point, so the question is, do you need to do the software part if you're going to do this to it? No, this is if, you would, no, you'd be wasting your time. The software, let's turn that on. The software is if you want to reuse the drive or give the drive away. A lot of people, you know, they're like, I want to donate my computer or something like that. That's when you would do the wiping the drive that way. If you're going to do it this way, there's no point. I mean, it's going to be destroyed. In the way in the back?
Yeah, so is that what's meant when my administrative assistant tells me that he's wiping the drive? Is that overwriting? Is that what we're talking about, wiping?
So the question is when somebody says they're wiping the drive, is this what they're talking about? I would hope so. I can't say for sure. I mean, some people, that might mean I just select it all and hit delete. I would double check. I would say, how are you exactly wiping the drive? Not putting into question your assistant, but I mean, in theory, yeah, if I was going to wipe the drive, it would be to totally write over this. And some of the operating systems have it built in. We, like I said, we just did this on a Mac that took 3 hours, and it's kind of built in. When you install, it says erase this, and then you can say securely erase this, and you can even set those standards. So I would double check. But yeah, this here, there's nothing left. Somebody once said, can I just do a drill press and drill a bunch of holes in it? And I said, if you've got a weekend and nothing to do, that'll totally work. I just don't want to spend my whole weekend doing that. So, question?
You mentioned copy machines and the hard drives on those. Is there anything else scary like that?
So she's saying copy machines with the hard drives. Is there any other devices that have it? I'd have to think. And nothing comes to mind as pertinent as a copy machine or a computer.
If you're copying sensitive or confidential or privileged documents, or a service is copying them for you, they have a copy of your documents.
Oh, so the question was if you're copying them or the service is copying them, they have a copy of your documents. I never thought about the service copying them. That's a really interesting point. These copy services now have copies.
That just is frightening to me out of all the things I've had copied over the years.
And well, this is only...
Well, since scanning, okay,
yeah.
since you could scan something.
And not every copier, but this is one of those interesting things where, I think everyone's realizing, not just big companies, that documents are more than just in our hands. And that's why we have copiers. We copy all the exhibits. That's how everybody gets a copy. So we had to make sure that when we get rid of our copiers, we destroy those things. So I would hope that document companies or scanning companies are realizing that and are not just throwing away their copiers.
Well, and
can't say for sure, but
a lot of small practices will rent a copy or a machine, and then when you send it back, I'm sorry, I'd like to keep the hard drive.
Yeah, no. So the comment was a lot of people will rent a copier, and then when you send it back, what do you do? I would talk to that service. A lot of them now are saying they will wipe that drive for you. They will do the software before they send it on to somebody else. They're going to make sure that hard drive is totally wiped. Because I'm sure, again, I don't work for a copying company. I'm sure they've seen articles like that last one where used copiers are bought, and I'm sure they would get in some trouble. But somehow we brought into that lawsuit, you bet. So I would talk with them though. And this goes back to either those license agreements or like I said in the beginning, just ask them, say, hey, when I get this copier back, what happens to the hard drive that's in there? And either if they go, you'll know to call somebody else, or they'll tell you, oh, we wiped them, blah, 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 blah. So, yeah, it's difficult, and, it's why you see companies that you wouldn't think naturally are really security conscious are suddenly waking up going, we have to be. We don't have a choice anymore. So, hopefully none of you can sleep tonight, but I hope I didn't scare you too much. I mean, really, it's just a matter of, taking as many steps as you can. Like I said, the more walls you put between you and the bad guy, the safer you're going to be. And there are going to be people who have password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and they never get hacked. Go figure. But I'd rather be on the other side of that. Here's a wonderful ad from the 80s trying to get email to take off. I can speak personally. I wish it never would have. And I feel like I'm drowned in email. But just to recap some of the key points, there's two types of information: disposable and detrimental. And I think most of what we deal with is detrimental, and we only get one chance to keep our clients' information confidential. When traveling, connect via VPN. I think that one is definitely an important one. Implement multi-factor authentication if you can, or on some of the services you can. It will add a nice layer. Use caution when using cloud services. I know it's a pain, but reach out to those service providers and look into where that data is being stored. Don't use Skype for depositions. I think we made that one clear. Use secure passwords. Thoroughly erase your old hard drives, and last but not least, stay updated on technology. I know it is incredibly difficult, even as somebody who does this, for a full-time job. It's hard to stay up on all the different facets. We'll do our best to keep coming up with CLEs. We have a whole CLE program. There's a bunch of other ones. We actually have a webinar tomorrow, so if you need more credit, go to veritexts.com/CLE. It is a complimentary webinar, and it's a different credit. It's not ethics, but you'll get one credit. And you can see also the whole listing of other courses. So we'll do our best to keep you updated. As I mentioned, we'll get an email out to you with the course material as well as that other product law studio that I spoke about. And if you have any questions, you can reach back to. It's either going to come from me or Eric, and you just reach back to one of us. We'll take care of that. And then any closing questions? All right. Thanks very much.
Thank you.